Hi, my name is Hale, and we're going to share my screen. Um, this is not what I wanted it to be. Escape, present. Okay. This is my environmental science final presentation. My name is Hale Wise. So the issue is the United States military is the largest global warming factor and polluter. The background is the military is known for its immense size, power, and resources, but is less known for how detrimental those factors are to the environment. So there are 800 bases around the world that belong to the US military, and that does not include the wars that were fought. Give me one second. That does not include the wars that were fought overseas. And I got this map from the internet that is mostly up to date. I think this is the most current map of all the little satellites and stations that there's bases and the different countries that they're in. So we're going to go right into the analysis. So in 2019, a report released by Durham and Lancaster University found the US military was one of the largest climate polluters in history, consuming more liquid fuels and emitting more CO2e, carbon dioxide equivalent, than most countries. For this section of the presentation, I have titled the slides depending on what they're related to. So these next couple slides are based on emissions. This is the link I got that from, and that is the university. So I got this information from earth.org, and the link is right there. It is established that if the US military were a nation state, it would be the 47th largest emitter of greenhouse gases in the world. The figures were taken into account the emissions from fuel usage alone. So it's the US military, not just our country, the military in our country alone. It's bigger than Morocco, Peru, Sweden, Hungary, Finland, New Zealand, Norway, and Switzerland. That's literally not even our country. That's just the military of our country. Our military uses almost 21 billion liters of fuel every year, more than the carbon emissions of Denmark, according to grist.org. According to Newsweek, in 2017, the military emitted more than 25,000 kilotons of carbon dioxide by burning fuels. And I got this information from this article from Weaver's Way, which is an environmentally conscious food co-op, and they do a lot with the environment. So the military does try to keep its exact emission reports hidden, but its climate policy is very contradictory. It's still one of the largest institutional consumers of hydrocarbons in the world, and it's a situation it's stuck in because it's dependent on its aircraft and warships for open-ended operations around the globe. Got this from earth.org. This is a cool picture that I found from Watson Institute. And it shows how many number of cars there are in the US and how many US military emissions there are. This is how many, the orange clouds are how much was fuel related consumption from just the war. And you can read this if you want. I'm not really a numbers person. A single emission, just the emissions alone were so unbelievably wasteful for fuel. And this section talks about how aircraft flying at high altitude, especially the military aircrafts, leave persistent thin clouds of cirrus clouds. And contrail, cirrus, as well as non-CO2 effects like NOx emissions from aviation are significant contributors to the global warming impacts of aircraft emissions. This means that fuel consumption data alone is not reliable for assessing a full climate impact of military aviation. So that's saying we don't even know the extent. It's more than what we can see, how bad they're impacting the atmosphere. And then down here it says, the fleet is huge. I'm not going to try to say these numbers, but the military fleet is very significant, like huge. So I want to take a time to point out that reducing emissions should not be the only goal here. We need to focus on also how bad their land and water pollution are. And I got this idea from the Conflict and Environment Observatory, and the link can be found right there. Yeah, so don't overlook the other military bad things that they do polluting wise. Don't just focus on emissions. So now you'll see at the top of the slides, we're in water and land pollution. So as the world's biggest polluter, our armed forces create 75,000 tons of toxic waste every year in the form of depleted uranium, oil, jet fuel, pesticides, defoliants, lead, and other chemicals. And I got that information from Weaver's Way Co-op. So this picture you might recognize. Two of the most harrowing cases of US military pollution activity were the nuclear tests that they performed in the Marshall Islands and the Navajo Indian Reservation. So they tested 67 nuclear weapons in what is now known as the Republic of Marshall Islands. I'm not going to try to pronounce all this stuff, but radiation poisoning, birth defects, leukemia, thyroid, and other cancers are just to name a few of the detrimental, life-threatening consequences experienced by the residents of those islands more than 75 years later. That was a long time ago, and people are still suffering from it in that area. And you'll see where I got all these sources from Earth.org. Here's some more examples, and there's just going to be a couple of these. So between these dates, Hanford Nuclear Reservation released radioactive toxic gases and fluids. It affected the fish, it affected the residents. In addition to this, uranium mining has been occurring for more than 50 years on and around these reservations, and has caused incredible cancer rates among Indigenous people. So we're transitioning a little bit. So it's not just nuclear testing, but can be in the form of military real estate. There are reports that military bases rank as some of the most polluted places in the world. This is due to the astonishing amount of toxic chemicals such as perchlorate and other components to jet fuel that are found to contaminate drinking water, aquifers, and the soil surrounding the bases. Abandoned military sites are very common, with reports finding that almost 900 of the 1,200 Superfund sites in the US alone are abandoned military sites. These military sites are also said to be contaminated with special cleanup grants distributed to them from the government. And this is from Earth.org too. Almost every military site in this country is seriously contaminated. Lejeune is one of many. And so the next slide is about Lejeune. From these dates, Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune in North Carolina was found to have been contaminating the groundwater with harmful chemicals that far exceeded safety standards. As a result of this negligence, a large number of servicemen contracted cancer and other illnesses. And then let me move my face. In 2017, the US Naval Air Station in Oceana, Norfolk, Virginia was found to have spilled 84,000 gallons of jet fuel into a waterway. Similarly, in 2019, statistics rose that the Air Force contractor had been dumping this chemical called trichloroethylene into the ground around Tucson International Airport for 29 years. And it was later found that 1,350 residents suffered from cancer and other illnesses due to these actions. There was tons of lawsuits, and the South Tucsonans, I think that's how I pronounce it, were really, really upset. And continue to suffer from damage from the drinking water to this day. And this is a map of that area, and that little red splotch is where the affected area was based on water tests. And then this is an article from NBC News. Forever chemical contaminates drinking water with near military bases. The article talks about two women growing up in Philadelphia suburbs near military bases, and they talk about how all their dogs were getting cancer and tumors, and their children were getting diagnosed with severe medical conditions, thyroid disease, cancer. Testing performed by the Environmental Protection Agency revealed groundwater near the bases have been contaminated with PFAs, a shorthand term for a family of chemicals called per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, found a long list of products, including cookware, firefighting foam used by military. The chemicals were the 90 some contaminants were not regulated by the Environmental Protection Agency. So here's the sustainable goals. The US military is infamous for its oil spills and its bomb testing that affects life below water. Climate action, as discussed, the US military is a huge contributor to global warming on its own and than many developed countries. And then clean water, without necessarily being aware of it, the US military contaminated many systems, water systems, via chemical waste, causing cancer and disease. The fact that the United States military's environmental impact is so large makes it a concern for everyone. And if we can make changes in that regard on a global scale, the militaries of other countries may follow suit. Solutions, defunding the military and resourcing those funds to environmental support, electric vehicle fleet, and finding safer ways to deal with abandoned sites. There has to be safer ways to do this. We should be funding more to the environment and less to the military. And the military should go electric. And here's a little quote that from Weaver's Way co-op that I like. You feel free to read it. It's basically shutting down the Pentagon. And here's my citations. Thank you.